So before Game 4 in Montreal, Ron MacLean had an interview with Gary Bettman. When I was younger, I loved when these two had interviews because I just thought it was Ron just kind of poking Gary for answers. This interview was a bit like, oh God, this feels kind of childish at some points. Except for when it finishes and you realize that Ron MacLean didn't poke about the Chicago situation at all. This garnered a lot of heat online. Now, Ron MacLean came out with a quote. I saw The Athletic put this out. Quote, "There were no topics off limits. I made the decision in the moment to not ask the question, in brackets, about the Chicago allegations." There were pokes about officiating, about player safety, the Olympics, which we'll get to in a second here. But what did you guys make of the interview besides the Ron saying a date and Gary just like a child kind of saying, well, no, actually, it's this time away. I don't know about you guys. It felt like a bit of a juvenile interview to me.
I wasn't entirely sure what was going on there.
Yeah.
Just though from the article, it was from Sean Fitzgerald's article from The Athletic. I really think that the way that quote is written, there were no topics off limits. I made the decision in the moment to not ask the question. Sounds to me like there was a discussion had about asking this question.
Yeah.
And then the decision was made, we're not going to ask the question. And for me, it's like, how do you not ask the question? Like, what's the thought process on not asking a question about it? Like, I said it when we had the discussion, like, this is a topic that should be on like CBC or I don't know, like this is news, like this is beyond sports. I don't see how you don't ask that. Like, I'm sorry, I get it's the Stanley Cup final, but like, that's not a good enough excuse. I don't really think there is a good enough excuse in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agreed. The interview, the way it went, it sounded like a very PR piece in a way where when it came to even, navigating through even the referee controversies, it just felt like they were softballs there, that like they weren't really something where it's like, I'm going to get into the heart of this. It was more of like, hey, we got the commissioner here and let's do something about that. And I think Ron MacLean's kind of decision not to talk about the Chicago thing, where I really think he should have, because that's a big thing where someone who literally is the commissioner, you want on national television to address it in a certain way. I don't know what the answer would be, but it's definitely something where it is in the public interest. It is something that this is affecting the game, like in a way, like, and I'm not saying this is correct, but I kind of felt that it's another hockey culture kind of thing where let's just kind of keep things as they are, what we're used to. Let's just focus on the game, and these other issues, let's go over it later on. Let's try to add a degree of separation between the two.
I find it interesting, the stuff that Ron tends to focus on. It feels like whenever he talks to Bettman, it feels like there's always talk about the reffing. Like every time they have an interview together, it happens. There was a line when Ron MacLean said, "I find it difficult to defend the refs," and like kind of laughed because I'm like, I don't know about you, but it feels like I was watching a different broadcast at times, because he does not criticize or defend. He tries to defend them. He says it's a hard job, but the big thing in journalism is you always give both sides, and it feels like Sportsnet do not often. They are afraid to take the negative route with a lot of stuff to me. On the 31 Thoughts podcast that came out today, Friedman said that he looks at some ESPN stuff and thinks maybe we need to do more of that. And I just think, there was a lost opportunity to talk to Gary. Ron MacLean, I think, needs to realize sometimes that that he's almost the voice of Canada when he talks to Gary. Right. No one else is going to have, if it is the Cup final, here in Canada's, our first appearance here since 2011, I felt like Ron had a responsibility to press Gary on a number of different topics. And he didn't. And I was disappointed with that, I'll say. Also, it's very frustrating on the side of the NHL that we're already getting signs that we're probably not going to the Olympics, Gary talked about just sort of there was insurance stuff, travel expense, stuff we've heard before. And it's going to be very disappointing if we don't go to the Olympics again. It's going to be a missed opportunity again. And it's not. Gary Bettman is so heavily focused on growing the game in the U.S., he misses the greater picture of, Gary, there's a whole world out there, and you're missing that market.
Go look at. Sorry, go ahead. Dan.
Oh no, I was just gonna mention. Sorry, Alex. That like if it's gonna be like Pyeongchang again, where at 2018, like I didn't care for the All-Star game. Like I know that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like that's one thing where they mentioned like, oh, we're gonna miss out on the revenue we have of the All-Star game or the recognition that players are gonna get. But again, yeah, the bigger picture of this is you want to grow the game. And I remember Don Cherry talked about it. I'm sorry if I'm mentioning him here, but it's just one thing that he talked about with the Olympics. And I know The Athletic kind of talked about it as well, where Don Cherry's like, no one's going to care watching these games that are happening like somewhere far away. But like, that's the thing. It's not just Canadian viewers you're worried about during the Olympics. Like, I'm going to admit, like, and people are still going to watch it. I think like, okay, from a personal experience, I still watched in Sochi, even though you had to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Everyone watched those games. And when you like kind of think about like, you need the NHL players to go to Asia.
Yeah, they missed the last Olympics. Oh, well, I guess, and then who knows what's going to happen with the summer ones this year, because Japan's in a state of emergency, but we might have it. I mean, I love the Olympics as a spectacle. I think everyone does. And to not see the sport that I love so much at it with its best players available. At the same time, I feel for the players because legacies are built at the Olympics. No one will forget the golden goal ever. And it's a shame that McDavid has already missed and looks to miss another chance at sort of being in that platform. Also, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
There's something to go back to about Gary in a second.
Okay. No, just with like the Olympics are some of the most watched events in the world. Mm-hmm. In the world, man. Like okay, maybe not hockey specifically, but if you like to watch the Olympics just in general, you're probably going to watch hockey. And it would be in the benefit of the NHL if you really want to grow the game. And you mentioned it before. He's so focused on growing the game in the US that he's forgotten about the other countries. Look at what the NBA is doing in growing in Asia. Look at what the NFL is doing. They're playing games in England. What's the NHL doing? Playing games in countries that already have like hockey leagues that are some of the best in the world, like Sweden and Russia. Like the anomaly there was Germany, right? I think they played a couple games in Germany and sending Leon Draisaitl, they're smart. But if you want to grow the game, I truly believe sending your players to the Olympics is one of the best ways to do that. And based on the what he said with that in that interview, and even at the Stanley Cup, the before Game 1 press conference, like Will tweeted it. You're throwing the Players Association under the bus here. You agreed. You said you were more than happy to do this before, right? Like in the CBA, it seemed like, okay, we'll get the ball rolling on this. And now the same issues are coming up. So which one is it? Like, make a decision here.
Carrot on the end of the stick, man. Carrot on the end of the stick. Popular commissioner, my friend. Something else that was very interesting about that interview, and again, Bettman choosing his words carefully when asked about officiating. This is a team sport, he said, which basically means, and will confirm, stars are not getting special treatment. So Connor McDavid, the best player, the guy who should be the face of your league, is going to get. It's not even like, because first off, it's a lie that. The fact of like, it's like this is a fairly even playing field where no one gets the exception. It's not even that. It is the stars get punished for being stars. You know what I mean? Like there is, okay, if you don't want to call something that they can get away with, like LeBron traveling, okay, but then there is blatantly getting interfered with by three different players and hooked and slashed like Connor McDavid. And it's like, what
Right.
are we doing here?
It makes no sense. And I'm sorry. I think these refs are the worst in the world.
Every time Will tells me that the NBA have worse refs, I'm just like, how?